China halts critical exports as trade war intensifies. Beijing has suspended exports of certain rare earth minerals and magnets that are crucial for the world's car, semiconductor, and aerospace industries. China has suspended exports of a wide range of critical minerals and magnets, threatening to choke off supplies of components central to automakers, aerospace manufacturers, semiconductor companies, and military contractors around the world. Shipments of the magnets, essential for assembling everything from cars and drones to robots and missiles, have been halted at many Chinese ports while the Chinese government drafts a new regulatory system. Once in place, the new system could permanently prevent supplies from reaching certain companies, including American military contractors. The official crackdown is part of China's retaliation for President Trump's sharp increase in tariffs that started on April 2nd. On April 4th, the Chinese government ordered restrictions on the export of 6 heavy rare earth metals, which are refined entirely in China, as well as rare earth magnets, 90% of which are produced in China. The metals and special magnets made with them can now be shipped out of China only with special export licenses. But China has barely started setting up a system for issuing the licenses. That has caused consternation among industry executives that the process could drag on and that current supplies of minerals and products outside of China could run low. Factories in Detroit and elsewhere run out of powerful rare earth magnets that could prevent them from assembling cars and other products with electric motors that require these magnets. Companies vary widely in the size of their emergency stockpiles for such contingencies, so the timing of production disruptions is hard to predict. The so-called heavy rare earth metals covered by the export suspension are used in magnets essential for many kinds of electric motors. These motors are crucial components of electric cars, drones, robots, missiles, and spacecraft. Gasoline-powered cars also use electric motors with rare earth magnets for critical tasks like steering. The metals also go into the chemicals for manufacturing jet engines, lasers, car headlights, and certain spark plugs. And these rare metals are vital ingredients in capacitors, which are electrical components of the computer chips that power artificial intelligence servers and smartphones. Michael Silver, the chairman and chief executive of American Elements, a chemical supplier based in Los Angeles, said his company had been told it would take 45 days before export licenses could be issued and exports of rare earth metals and magnets would resume. Mr. Silver said that his company had increased its inventory last winter in anticipation of a trade war between the United States and China, and could meet its existing contracts while waiting for the licenses. Daniel Pickard, the chairman of the Critical Minerals Advisory Committee for the Office of the United States Trade Representative and Department of Commerce, expressed concern about the availability of rare earths. Does the export control or ban potentially have severe effects in the U.S.? Yes, he said. Mr. Pickard, leader of the International Trade and National Security Practice at the Buchanan Ingersoll and Rooney law firm, said a swift resolution of the rare earths issue was necessary because a sustained disruption of exports could hurt China's reputation as a reliable supplier. In a potential complication, China's Ministry of Commerce, which issued the new export restrictions jointly with the General Administration of Customs, has barred Chinese companies from having any dealings with an ever-lengthening list of American companies, particularly military contractors. One American mining leader, James Litinsky, the executive chairman and chief executive of MP Materials, said that rare earth supplies for military contractors were of particular concern. Drones and robotics are widely considered the future of warfare, and based on everything we are seeing, the critical inputs for our future supply chain are shut down, he said. MP Materials owns the sole rare earths mine in the United States, the Mountain Pass mine in the California desert near the Nevada border, and hopes to start commercial production of magnets in Texas at the end of the year for General Motors and other manufacturers. A few Japanese companies keep rare earth inventories of more than a year's supply, having been hurt in 2010, when China imposed a 7-week embargo on rare earth exports to Japan during a territorial dispute. But many American companies keep little or no inventory because they do not want to tie up cash in stockpiles of costly materials. One of the metals subject to the new controls, dysprosium oxide, trades for $204 per kilogram in Shanghai, and much more outside China. Rare earth magnets make up a tiny share of China's overall exports to the United States and elsewhere. So halting shipments causes minimal economic pain in China while holding the potential for big effects in the United States and elsewhere. Chinese customs officials are blocking exports of heavy rare earth metals and magnets not just to the United States but to any country, including Japan and Germany. Enforcement of the new export license requirement, though, has been uneven so far among different Chinese ports, rare earth industry executives said. Most but not all rare earth magnets include heavy rare earths, which are needed to prevent magnets from losing their magnetism at high temperatures or in some electrical fields. Some rare earth magnets are made only from light rare earths and are not subject to export restrictions. Customs officials at a few Chinese ports are tolerating exports of magnets if they have only tiny traces of heavy rare earth metals in them, and if the magnets are not going to the United States. Officials at other Chinese ports are taking a more stringent stance, however, demanding that exporters run tests to prove that any batch of magnets does not have heavy rare earth metals in them before the magnets can be loaded on a ship for export. Chinese export restrictions began taking effect before the Trump administration announced on Friday night that it would exempt many kinds of consumer electronics from China from its latest tariffs. Magnet exports continue to be blocked this weekend, 5 rare earth industry executives said. Like most goods from China, the magnets are also subject to President Trump's latest tariffs when they arrive at American ports. Until 2023, China produced 99% of the world's supply of heavy rare earth metals, with a trickle of production coming out of a refinery in Vietnam. But that refinery has been closed for the past year because of a tax dispute, leaving China with a monopoly. China also produces 90% of the world's nearly 200,000 tons a year of rare earth magnets, which are far more powerful than conventional iron magnets. Japan produces most of the rest and Germany produces a tiny quantity as well, but they depend on China for the raw materials. China's Ministry of Commerce did not reply to a request for comment. The world's richest deposits of heavy rare earths lie in a small forested valley on the outskirts of Longnan in the red clay hills of Jiangxi province in south-central China. And most of China's refineries and magnet factories are in or near Longnan and Guangzhou, a town about 80 miles away. Mines in the valley ship or to refineries in Longnan, which remove contaminants and send the rare earths to magnet factories in Guangzhou. China's most famous factory for these magnets is operated by the JL Mag Rare Earth Company, whose headquarters are in Guangzhou. The factory supplies the world's top 2 electric car producers, Tesla and China's BYD, with the magnets that power their cars, rare earth industry executives said. BYD has said that it buys some of the world's latest, most powerful magnets from JL Mag, with 15 times the magnetic force per cubic inch of volume as a conventional iron magnet. Xi Jinping, China's top leader, made a special inspection visit to JL Mag's factory in Guangzhou in 2019, during heightened trade tensions in Mr. Trump's first term. The trip was interpreted as a hint that China was ready to use its control over the materials to disrupt American supply chains, a step it did not take then but is doing now. China paused the mining of heavy rare earths near Longnan a few years ago because it was causing severe chemical pollution. On Friday, at the site of one mine near Longnan, a diesel generator was humming and liquids were gurgling through plastic pipes, indicating that at least some mining operations had probably resumed. Heavy rare earths are mined by dumping strong chemicals into holes dug in the top of a hillside. Chemicals dissolve the ore and dribble out of the base of the hill, where they can be pumped to nearby pits for initial processing. Trump signals new tariffs on chips, calling exclusions temporary. On Friday, the administration carved out an exception for a variety of electronics from the steep taxes now applied to Chinese imports. President Trump signaled on Sunday that he would pursue new tariffs on the powerful computer chips inside smartphones and other technologies. just 2 days after his administration excluded a variety of electronics from the steep import taxes recently applied on goods arriving from China. Push came as Mr. Trump's top economic advisors scrambled to explain their shifting strategy, after having insisted for weeks that they would shield no company or industry from any of the fees they have levied in a bid to reset U.S. trade relationships. The reprieve for technology companies arrived in the form of a Customs and Border Protection rule issued late Friday that spared high-tech imports from Mr. Trump's so-called reciprocal tariffs, including those on China. While the president paused a set of punishing levies on nearly 60 countries last week, his administration has forged ahead with a new 145% tax on Chinese exports, announcing it after Beijing retaliated against the United States. The exclusions in the CBP rule covered a wide slate of products such as computers, smartphones, modems, and flash drives, and it represented a major victory for Apple and other U.S. technology giants, which rely on Chinese factories to help manufacture important components and popular devices. Full executives had even been in contact with Trump administration officials about the Chinese tariffs in recent days, according to 2 people with knowledge of the company's efforts. Company declined to comment. But on Sunday, Mr. Trump and his top aides cast the exemptions in a different light, framing them as only a temporary break while the government prepares more targeted import taxes on key technologies. The administration is expected to take the first step toward enacting the new tariffs as soon as next week, opening an investigation to determine the effects of semiconductor imports on national security. The approach appears to mirror the process that yielded Mr. Trump's tariffs on other specific products and sectors, including the high fees he imposed on foreign cars and auto parts this year. On social media, the president signaled Sunday that the scope of his next inquiry would be broad, taking a look at semiconductors and the whole electronic supply chain in the upcoming national security tariff investigations. Nobody is getting off the hook for the unfair trade balances and non-monetary tariff barriers that other countries have used against us, especially not China, which by far treats us the worst, Mr. Trump added. Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, said earlier Sunday on ABC's This Week that Mr. Trump could announce new tariffs in the next month or two that would target not only semiconductors but also pharmaceutical imports, another priority for the administration. Kevin Hassett, the director of the White House National Economic Council, told CNN's State of the Union that it was always the case that some of these high-tech imports would be subject to their own tariffs, separate from those broadly imposed on countries in response to their trade practices. Semiconductors are a key important part of a lot of defense equipment, Mr. Hassett added, saying, I don't think anything really should be a surprise. And Jamieson Greer, the U.S. trade representative, described the move on CBS's Face the Nation as more of a mechanical change, saying of semiconductors that it is not that they won't be subject to tariffs, but that they are being done under a different regime. Trump administration had already excluded various types of semiconductors from the reciprocal tariffs as of April 2nd. But the chaotic changes in tariffs and exclusions in recent days bewildered businesses that depend on trade with China. Some investors and chief executives publicly praised the decision to walk back tariffs on electronics, which represent roughly a quarter of U.S. imports from China. A willingness to adjust a strategy based on new facts and data is a sign of the strength of a leader, Bill Ackman, the chief executive of the hedge fund Pershing Square, wrote on social media. It is not an indication of weakness. Still, there appears to be no quick end to the trade conflict with China in sight. And the potential for new tariffs on chips threaten to cast another pall over the tech industry, even as major lobbying groups representing Intel, NVIDIA, and other companies have encouraged the Trump administration to strike trade deals that ultimately lower trade barriers globally. Asked about the possibility of upcoming tariffs on chips on Saturday, Mr. Trump said, I'll give you that answer on Monday. We'll be very specific, he added. But we're taking in a lot of money. As a country, we're taking in a lot of money. Dan Ives, an analyst for Wedbush Securities, said in a note to investors on Sunday that, The mass confusion created by this constant news flow out of the White House is dizzying for the industry and investors and creating massive uncertainty and chaos for companies trying to plan their supply chain, inventory, and demand. Ultimately, new taxes on chip imports could make it more expensive for U.S. companies to produce smartphones and other devices, cutting into their profits or forcing them to raise prices on American consumers. For Apple in particular, the tit-for-tat between the United States and China caused the tech giant to lose more than $770 billion in market capitalization in just the opening days of Mr. Trump's trade war. Since then, the two nations have continued to retaliate against each other, causing financial markets around the world to whipsaw in the face of a persistent and costly standoff. U.S. consumers even appeared to rush out to purchase new iPhones last week, anticipating that a protracted trade conflict could push up prices.